standing inside of a Byzantine church from the 14th century. Around you, you see wall paintings, frescoes from the 14th century. It is the only church, one of the only churches in Thessaloniki that was not converted into a mosque during the time of the Ottoman Turkish rule. And that is why these frescoes inside this church were saved. Because in many of the other churches of the city that became mosques, the Turks who were Muslim went in and they either covered the frescoes or they completely took them off the wall and destroyed them. And so because this was one of the few churches in the city that remained a church during the period of the Ottoman rule, these frescoes were saved. And you see inside here various depictions from many different themes. On the top two belts of the frescoes, you see scenes from the Holy Passion of Christ. And you also see depictions of the 12 feasts of the church. Starting from here, you see Christ praying in the Garden of Gethsemane before his crucifixion. Here he's arrested by Judas and the soldiers from the temple. Here you see Jesus' trial inside the temple. And you see the high priest of the temple in Jerusalem ripping his garments out of anger because he accused Christ of blasphemy for saying that he was the Son of God. Here you see Christ being brought before the Roman authorities and before Pilate. And here you see Peter in the gospel denying that he knew Christ because he was afraid that he would be arrested as well. And you see people accusing him because they had seen him with Christ before, and he's denying. It's what we call the denial. In the middle we see a depiction of the repose of the Virgin Mary. But continuing on over here, we see the continuation of the scene of the Passion. Here Christ has been flogged, he's been mocked, he's been tortured, and he's been clothed in a red garment in sort of mockery, because he said that he was the King of the Jews and the Son of God, and so they're mocking him. And they had adorned him with a crown of thorns, they had beaten him, and he's also holding a rod and a scepter, and a symbol of authority. And then after the mockery, he was taken to the cross, and you see Christ ascending the cross willingly. This is a very special depiction because it shows that he's got a stepping stool, and he's sort of climbing up to the cross by himself, and it's to represent that Christ crucified willingly. He went to it willingly, he did not resist, because the point of the crucifixion was the salvation of mankind, and that was his goal as God, to save mankind. And so we see him climbing up to the cross willingly to be crucified. And then kind of going backwards, the scenes actually start from over here. You see the Last Supper, you see Christ surrounded by his disciples at the Last Supper, and then over there there's the washing with the feet. And then up above you see the resurrection of Christ after the crucifixion. You also see Christ being taken down from the cross. There's another depiction of Christ being crucified, Christ being taken down from the cross, the lamentation of Christ's body. You see Christ over here entering into Jerusalem. You see parts of the resurrection of Lazarus. Here's the baptism of Christ in the Jordan.
Is die brandjesal de verste zaal?
So those are the scenes from the top of the frescoes. You also see other depictions, the great hierarchs of the church, bishops who wrote important texts that define the Christian faith. Individuals such as Basil the Great, St. John Chrysostom, St. Gregory the theologian, St. Gregory of Nyssa, and other bishops. You also see the Virgin Mary standing up and flanked by two angels, signifying that she is the Queen of Heaven. You also see the communion of the apostles. Here you see Christ giving the apostles the holy blood in the form of wine. And then over here you see Christ giving the apostles the body in the form of bread. What else? And then around those you see different saints, important saints. You see St. George, St. Demetrios, St. Minas. What else? Let's see. St. John the Forerunner. Here's Christ over here. Here's the Virgin Mary here. Here's St. John the Theologian. And this is also a very typical church. It's split into three parts. You have the narthex, you have the nave, the main worship space, and then you have the Holy of Holies, the altar, which is where only the priests could go. This is where the services are chanted from. This is called the Amologio. The narthex in the early church was the place for people who were not baptized yet, and they would participate in the service from the narthex. It was for people that were undergoing a penitence for a sin they had committed, or if they had not been baptized yet. And so that's the typical layout of an Orthodox church. You could also say that it fits the early form of a basilica, of an early Christian basilica, because it does not have a dome, as most early Christian churches do not have a dome. And so you see it's got the chiones, or the columns on either side, separating.
Και πες του και για τα θαύματα του Χριστού που είναι σε αυτή την πλευρά. Να πάμε και να
Από εδώ. Yeah, so there's also some depictions of the miracles of Christ. So you see Christ at the wedding of Cana, and he's changing the water into the wine because his mother, the Virgin Mary, asked him to. At first he did not want to, but because the Virgin Mary asked him to, he did it. So one of the miracles of Christ, the first miracle he ever did, was changing the water into wine at the wedding of Cana, so that they could have wine to drink. Here you see Christ making the paralyzed man walk. And the other depiction, you see Christ making the blind woman see. Here you see Christ making the paraplegic get up out of his bed and walk. And here you see Christ giving water to the woman at the well, the Samaritan. Yes.
I have read my book before.
Yes, so it depicts scenes from the Bible, right?
Και πάλι είναι το θαύμα του υδροπικού.
Ναι, του είπα.
Και τον κύκλο του Αγίου Νικολάου, γιατί είναι αφιερωμένος ο ναός. Και είναι πάντοτε σε ναός.
So because the church is dedicated to St. Nicholas, we also have depictions from the life of St. Nicholas. Let's see, where does it start?
Και τα θαύματα του Αγίου Νικολάου.
And miracles of St. Nicholas as well. So, where does it start?
Και η κίνηση του Αγίου Νικολάου στο τέλος.
So you see, δεν ξέρω από πού αρχίζει.
Ξεκινάει από τη γέννηση του Αγίου Νικολάου, εδώ πέρα, επάνω.
So here's the birth of St.
Ο Άγιος
Nicholas.
στο σχολείο και συνεχίζει με τις χειροτονίες του Αγίου Νικολάου.
Okay, so here's the birth of St. Nicholas. It shows his life. This is when St. Nicholas was at school being taught, and then you see his ordination as a priest, and then later as a bishop. He's ordained as a bishop here, and
Συνεχίζει τα θαύματα του Αγίου Νικολάου.
εδώ τι
Είναι επίσκοπο. Έχουμε διάκονος, πρεσβύτερος, επίσκοπο.
Διάκονος,
Τώρα οι τρεις.
So here he's ordained as a deacon.
Αυτές είναι οι τρεις πες του.
So then he's a priest, and then here he's a bishop. Those are the three ranks of ordination.
Και εδώ είναι η μεγάλη η κίνηση της Θεοτόκου κάτω. Τα άλλα όλα είναι θαύματα που έκανε ο Άγιος.
And so all of the other depictions are depictions of the miracles that St. Nicholas did. Αυτά.
Είναι μοναστήρι που είναι ανδρικό, γιατί έχουμε πίσω ασκητές Αγίους. Τον Άγιο Παύλο το Φιδαίο,
This was a monastery. It was a male monastery. Today it's just a place of veneration, but it belongs to a monastery here in Thessaloniki, the monastery of Latavan, which is a little farther. It's a dependency of the monastery of Latavan, which is still a working monastery.
In the old town, the medieval town.
Yes, a little further up. Yes.
Αυτό.
Ναι.
Έστω για το Σάββατο του Λαζάρου, το απόγευμα νομίζω που είναι στη Μονή του Λατάθου που θα ψέρνουν και την Τρίτη στην Αρχιεροποίηση.
Σάββατο του Λαζάρου δεν είναι μέχρι ερχόμενη.
Κυρία Χατσούλη, δεν μπορούμε να περιμένουμε παραπάνω.
Όχι, αυτό το Σάββατο είναι.
Yes, nice to meet you as well.
Είδα ρε, αυτό το Σάββατο.
Θα κλείσει την Πέμπτη στην...
Θα έχω φύγει.
Φιλιά πολλά.